Party on, Todd.
Party on, Sal.
Rock on.
Rock on.
Well, welcome, POJCasters, to another Party on Johncast, the podcast that involves two awesome Johns, theology, whatever we're drinking, rock and music, and more. This is the Reverend Sal Marco, a ordained teaching elder in the Presbytery of Newton, PC, USA, and also in the validated ministry of healthcare chaplaincy.
Always needing to be validated. Isn't that right, Alison?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, see, this is so much fun having Alison on. My name is Reverend Todd Laddick. I am an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church of Greater New Jersey, serving a congregation in Newton, New Jersey on higher ground than Sal.
And we have a guest with us today as I try to adjust our some rockin' sun flare going on our Zoom.
And I know you're talking about Uric.
Yes.
My poor friend Uric. I knew him well, Horatio.
We have two guests actually that you'll hear. We have, of course, my wife Alison. Say hi, Alison.
Hello.
And we have my son Calvin. So we technically have three Johns on today.
Well, hello, Calvin. How are you doing?
I'm good, Todd. How are you?
Wow, he articulates well at this age, man.
So
You must be putting him on the special juice.
That's right. So if you hear some cooing and oohing and ahhing, that's Calvin.
We are hoping to hear that.
That's right.
So, well, awesome. I guess this is a good place for us to start our Brews segment.
Hey guys, how do you know that God loves beer?
How?
He wrote about it in the book of Hebrews.
Ba-dum. All I see is Alison shaking her head now.
Yep. Always, that's a common theme in our household.
Well, since I'm the ever fun guy, get it? Okay, so since I'm not
you're
a
doing
mushroom.
shrooms.
Yeah, but since I am always the raging fun guy, I'm going to start off. I am drinking the ever old school sparkling Poland Spring with a twist of lemon. It is sparkling water with a twist of lemon. I don't know how else to describe it.
From Maine.
From Maine, absolutely. Yep, from Maine.
So Todd is being a stereotypically teetotaling Methodist today. So, you want to go next, Alison?
Sure. I don't know the brand. But
Torri or
yeah, it's Torri. It's an Italian Pinot Grigio, and it's kind of my go-to. It's not so cheap, but it tastes good. I'm kind of a big fan of Italian Pinot Grigio, and that's what I'm drinking. I like Pinot Grigio because it's not too sweet and it's not too dry. It's just kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
And,
if I'm going to drink a white wine, Pinot Grigio is right. That or a Sauvignon Blanc, one of those two are my two go-tos. Yeah.
But I don't know. When I can find it, it's my go-to brand, and it's not too expensive either. But
good.
I like
Rock
it.
on.
Yes.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
And
Calvin is drinking Similac Pro Sensitive.
Okay. Well, rock on, Calvin.
That's his favorite go-to.
That's his go-to
right now.
When he gets formula drunk, on Similac Pro Sensitive.
Yeah,
and break to sleep when he gets milk drunk.
Hit that bottle hard, man. Teach him right. So my health accountability partner, I'm sure you're drinking something extremely healthy right now.
Oh, extremely healthy. I'm drinking Industrial Arts Landscape Series, all New York State grown and brewed lagers. It's Summer Landscape. It's out of Industrial Arts Brewing Company. They're up in where is it? Gardnerville, New York, which is up by there's a Binky. It's up by West Haverstraw, New York, so it's not too far away, Rockland County.
Okay, yeah.
It's a good lager. It's a little hoppier than most lagers, but it's good. And they also have a tap house in Beacon.
Oh, nice.
So
a nice lager.
Well, just so everybody knows and has the explanation, Sal and I a few weeks ago decided we were going to get our butts into gear when it came to eating and drinking healthy.
Right.
And so I went on a couple week juice fast, and then I ended the juice fast this past Friday. And so I've been eating and drinking healthy, hence my sparkling water. I don't do none of that like sparkling spiked sparkling water or like hard sparkling water, White Claw or whatever. I do old school. If I'm gonna enjoy sparkling water, I'm gonna enjoy sparkling water. I don't need to get drunk off of my sparkling water. I feel like somebody one day said, "This is too much calories. I'm gonna invent putting vodka in sparkling water and get healthy." But that's a contradiction of terms. You're still drinking alcohol. It's still points. Why bother?
So I'm assuming you were never a Zima guy in the 90s?
No. I mean, I drank Zima because it was something different, but they didn't target themselves as sparkling water.
No,
they were a sweet kind of drink.
Yeah. I've been intermittently fasting, so that was a recommendation of my doctor.
Okay.
So
how's that going?
Day by day.
Gotcha.
Really haven't fasted today, but.
Well, I went back onto Weight Watchers because their new program is much more geared now. Well, they have different plans, and one of the plans is the purple plan, and it is geared to somebody like me. You can eat a whole bunch of whole foods, which costs 0 points. And then anything you eat that's outside of that, like 200 or 300 list of foods, will cost however many points they cost. You get less points a day, which the idea is that they want you eating whole foods. And so vegetables, fruits, brown rice, potatoes, all of that is 0 points.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And I love potatoes. I love rice. I'm able to just eat whatever I want out of those. And honestly, when you're eating, how many potatoes can you eat? They fill you pretty quick.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm doing pretty good.
Nice.
Doing pretty good on it. And because my insurance, I get half off the price. So I'm paying $8 a month for digital Weight Watchers. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been doing. I think it's when I was looking, it was $16.69, something like that.
Okay.
Somewhere between $16 and $20, I think, a month. I think they went down to 16 something. So so that's what I've been doing, and so far so good.
Obviously, on intermittent fasting, I mean, you're technically not supposed to drink alcohol, I don't think, at least while you're fasting. I'm not fasting right now, so I can drink alcohol.
You're on the other side of the intermittent fast.
Yes.
Got you. So I guess, my friends, Alison already said, and we already know what Calvin's drinking. So that does bring us to our most excellent music segment.
Actually, that didn't even bother Calvin.
Now, Calvin was like, rock on, bro.
Rock on.
Yeah.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first because I've been in one of those weird phases where nothing is really doing it for me. have you ever been in a blah music stage? I'm in a blah music stage, but with all that has been going on with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and the Black Lives Matter and all of that, I have been listening to a lot of spirituals, and I've been listening to John Legend and Common did a song called Glory for the Selma soundtrack.
It's a great song.
It's a great song. So that is going to be my song for the it seems fitting for not only our conversation this evening, but also our just where we are as a country. So I'm gonna put up Glory and the chorus without getting into the lyrics. I guess I could get into the lyrics because he raps them, and some people may find that like hard to understand. Though I think he's pretty darn clear in it. So Glory, again, song by John Legend and Common. The chorus goes, "One day when the glory comes, it will be ours. It will be ours. One day when the war is won, we will be sure. We will be sure. Oh glory." The chorus says, the choir says glory, and then oh glory. So the lyrics, I won't read the chorus again, but the lyrics are this: hands to the heaven, no man, no weapon formed against. Yes, glory is destined. Every day, women and men become legends. Sins that go against our skin become blessings. The movement is a rhythm to us. Freedom is like religion to us. Justice is juxtaposition in us. Justice for all just ain't specific enough. One son died. His spirit is revisiting us. Truant living in us. Resistance is us. That's why Rosa sat on the bus. That's why we walk through Ferguson with our hands up. When it go down, we woman and man up. They say stay down, and we stand up. Shots, we on the ground. The camera panned up. King pointed to the mountain top, and we ran up. And then he goes on to say, "Not now. The war isn't over. Victory isn't won, and we'll fight on to the finish. When it's all done, we'll cry glory, oh glory. We'll cry glory, oh glory." Selma's now for every man, woman, child. Even Jesus got his crown in front of a crowd. They marched with the torch. We run with it now. Never look back. We done gone hundreds of miles. From dark roads he rose to become a hero. Facing the League of Justice, his power was the people. Enemy is lethal. A king became regal. Saw the face of Jim Crow under a bald eagle. The biggest weapon is to stay peaceful. We sing. Our music is the cuts that we bleed through. Somewhere in the dream we had an epiphany. Now we right the wrongs in history. No one can win the war individually. It takes the wisdom of the elders and young people's energy. Welcome to the story we call victory. The coming of the Lord, my eyes have seen the glory. And then it, goes on with the chorus. So it is a powerful song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Biblical, dare I say.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that line in there of even Jesus was crucified in front of a crowd.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll go second because Alison's tending to Calvin.
Sure.
I don't know if you've ever heard of an artist called Propaganda.
Yep.
He's a hip-hop spoken word artist. He had an album that came out in 2017 that actually deals with a lot of race issues.
Mm-hmm.
So he has one song and so the album is called Crooked, and the song is called Crooked Ways.
Mm.
The whole album was good, but the lyrics are, word to my grandpops who couldn't fathom the Obamas. I don't hate America, just a man she keeps her promises. 20 teens looking like the 60s, it's crazy. A nationwide deja vu. What my people supposed to do? Go to schools named after the clown founder? Word around town is y'all don't see why we frowning. Native American students forced to learn about Winnepearo Sarah. How's that fair, bro? Some heroes unsung and some monsters get monuments built for them. But ain't we all a little bit of monster? We crooked. Man, your heroes are worthless. And man can sure try, but only God gives purpose. You crooked. Be humble or be quiet. Your kingdom can catch flames as effortless as riots. Entire empire's card castle chill. And the strength of your whole team is crumpled with one meme. It's crooked. Your whole work is twisted. He ain't old enough to buy beer, but can go on and enlist him. Send him to Iraq, and why he come back crazy? Because no human being should see the insides of a baby. You expect trust in the system that needed to be convinced of the madness of trust in the court that waved the Confederate flag. It's crooked. That's twisted, demented, perverted, got fallen written all over us, and got the nerve to judge each other. Crooked. That's logic fatally flawed. Like sickness is a sign that you out of the will of God. Like 1 ounce of crack gains the same amount of jail time as 18 of cocaine. But ain't they the same thing? It's crooked. Stay eating our own kind and muster up scandal instead of celebrating shine. And somehow the righteous, like the world needs to know, we exposing them posers with judgmental boulders, crooked. And at one time we built pyramids. One can only wonder why we ain't wiped ourselves out yet. We're as good as it gets, crooked. Clueless buffoons put a man on the moon, and still I can't get a cell phone reception in my room. So, I mean, it's all about, life's crooked, but, the struggles of peoples of color.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, that's powerful too. And yeah. Another song came to my mind actually, and if I don't know if Allison's ready to share or not yet, but
I'll share for her because she's
okay. Sure.
And you can bleep this out in the edit if you want to.
All right.
First song is by NWA. Can you guess what song it
is? Yeah.
It's if you it's almost, it's like about 30 years old, listening to the lyrics, and when they were so controversial, and even the music video, but the music video wasn't even showing any violence towards the police. It was just getting arrested. But if if you just have to listen, and you have to see where they come from, and the mindset. It's 30 years later, and we're we're not dealing with it. People of color.
30 years later, and the beginning of the song says, "Fuck the police, coming straight from the underground. A young nigger got it bad because I'm brown, not the other color. So police think they have the authority to kill a minority. Fuck that shit, because I ain't the one for a punk motherfucker with a badge and a gun." So,
yeah, I mean, if anybody hasn't seen the film Straight Outta Compton, and you want to learn something about NWA and what that song meant, and and the white privilege that turned it into the controversy that it is, because anytime you say words like that, it automatically gets translated. Well, you want police to die, and you hate police officers, and you're anti-police, and that's not what it is about at all. What it is about is anti-racism, and it's not that the police, even individually, whether they are or not, is irrelevant. I mean, it's not irrelevant if somebody's racist and they do something racist, but whether the police individually are racist or not, the bigger picture is that the system is. Right. So when you say, when you say F the police, you're not necessarily saying F Officer Joe, who I happen to like and see at the grocery store every day. You're saying F the system, right. But it gets taken as, oh, you hate police officers. And that's not the case. And no matter how much you explain it, some people are going to take it that way anyway, no matter what. But you know what? I'm not going to censor that. Maybe I'll give it an 18 plus rating or something, just so young kids don't, have to deal with it. But then again, that's privilege, because there are plenty of young black kids that have to deal with this sort of violence in the streets.
That's right.
How lucky of us.
Oh boy. Yeah. The fact that there were probably, and I posted some stuff on Facebook the other day, and it was, I don't know if you saw Dave Chappelle's most recent 30-minute stand-up special.
No, I didn't.
Called 846.
Oh God.
And
Okay.
he spent the whole special talking about George Floyd.
Okay. No, I definitely didn't see that.
And he, in Dave Chappelle fashion, of course, uses foul language. And so I shared it. I said, watch it, process it, become an ally. And if you're more mad at me for the language, you.
Well, that's just it, right? Like people will get angry at you for the way you're speaking before they'll get angry that somebody just got killed, unjustly. Another song that I was thinking about is Childish Gambino, This Is America.
Yeah.
That's another great song that really kind of pinpoints America. We just want to party just for you. We just want the money just for you. I know you want to party just for free. Girl, you got me dancing and shaking the frame. We just want to party just for you. We just want the money just for you. I know you want to party just for free. Girl, you got me dancing, dance and shake the frame. This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Don't catch you slipping. Look what I'm whipping now. This is America. The whole thing is about like just the shallow, like, just it paints America in a very like true way.
Consumerism, shallowness. Yeah.
Yeah. And here, like, this is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Look at how I'm living now. Police be tripping now. Yes, this is America. Guns in my area. I got the strap. I got to carry them. Yeah. I'm gonna go into this. Yeah. This is guerrilla. Yeah. I'm gonna get the bag. Yeah. I'm gonna get the pad. Yeah. I'm so like I'm cold. I'm so cold. Like yeah. I'm so dope. Like yeah. We're gonna blow. Like yeah. And the whole point is like, this is America. This is the reality that people are living in. An America that cares more about money than it does death, than it does guns, than it does anything else. And I think Childish Gambino, aka Donald Glover, really gets it right.
AKA a young Lando Calrissian.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. He's awesome in that.
Yeah.
It's another song that really kind of that I think of in this time. So
yeah.
Wow, NWA. Go see Straight Outta Compton. Great film.
Great movie.
That was a good movie.
Yeah.
Yep. And by the way, it stars the son of Ice Cube, who plays Ice Cube.
Right, yeah.
Talk about authenticity.
Yeah.
It kind of looked like him, like 30 years. Yeah.
You could definitely see the resemblance.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yep. It's just an excellent movie. Okay. That is our most excellent music segment. Pretty much hip hop edition.
I wasn't planning to go with hip hop, but then I was like, you know what? It would be apropos for the conversation.
Yeah, it totally fits.
Yeah.
So, good. Well, that brings us into our Let Freedom Ring segment, which will also coalesce with the Shithouse Theology segment because there's a whole lot of shit.
Tomorrow, remember, this is my country and I'm going to do good for it. Just might work. We'll never know unless we give it a fair try. Oh, yeah, and there's one other thing I'll say tomorrow because I say it every day of my life. God bless America.
That I love, stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the ocean, wide and wide.
Mama!
Get up and get in the car right.
I can't.
So where do we want to start?
Well, I guess we should acknowledge, first of all, the reason we're calling it Let Freedom Ring is obviously this is coming out July 1st, so it'll be right around
Yes,
Independence Day.
correct.
We as Americans like to celebrate our freedom and our independence.
We do. But on the flip side of it, as we will be discussing, that freedom means one thing to some of us and something else to others. And for us more privileged folks, we'll get into talk about privilege too. I think it's important we have a little discussion on that. But for those of us who are more privileged, who maybe grew up a little on the paler side of the color spectrum, we grew up with, God, guns, and country, or something to that effect. Maybe not exactly like that, but basically, you respect the flag, you respect God, you respect the flag, and you respect your country, and obviously you take care of your family and all that. It's the American dream, folks. Have your slice of American pie.
That's right. American pie.
Right.
Parades down Main Street.
Right.
Yep.
But those of us who grew up on a more dark side of the color spectrum, they got, hands up above your head. What are you doing in these parts?
Mm-hmm.
Having security guards following them around ShopRite because they couldn't be up to anything but no good, right?
Yep.
Like that, So while we're celebrating the freedoms we have in this country, there are people in our country who are not quite as free as us. So the point of this segment is let freedom ring, absolutely. But until it rings for all, it ain't ringing for any.
No.
That's right. But Todd, all lives matter.
Oh, yes, all lives matter. Never have I been in more agreement and also more angry at a statement at the same time. Like normally when you're in agreement with something, you're not angry at it. I am in agreement. All lives do matter. I don't think any sane, decent human being would disagree that all lives matter. Why is that a problem, though? Why would such a good, truthful, you should believe in it statement be so angering?
The reason that, and I think people that share it are sincere.
Mostly, yes.
Mostly. The problem is that right now, we can on like July 4th, we are going to, there will be countless readings of the Declaration of Independence across the country on July 4th. Mm-hmm. And we love to hold up this section. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
The problem is this country was founded literally on the fact that black men, not counting women, black men.
Women aren't even mentioned in there. Right?
No.
Right.
We literally wrote into the Constitution that black men were only worth 5/8 of a man.
Right.
So we are founded on the basis that black and colored people are not worth as much as a white man. Yeah, understanding that obviously when this country was founded, the only people who had the right to vote were rich white landowning men.
Right, and they could count their slaves, but their slaves only count. They could count, and here's what it came down to, right? So this is where the Electoral College comes in. So basically, if he came down to it, the slaves outnumbered the whites big time. So you couldn't have a slave count as a whole person, but you couldn't just have a fair election system based off of the very few white people who actually lived on plantations down in the South. And so what do you do to make up the difference between the rural areas and the rural areas and the more populated city metropolitan areas? Is you gave them ways of counting more people so that they could get more delegates or get more electoral college representation. And so in the South in particular, you could count or in the north, I guess, if you had servants, but hired servants. Yeah,
there was slavery in New Jersey until Slavery in New Jersey wasn't outlawed until 1820, so there were slaves in New Jersey up until the Civil War.
Yeah, most of them were below the Mason-Dixon line. Yeah, Southern Jersey. But basically, if you had slaves, you could count each slave as 5/8 of a person, and based off of that, that would up the amount of influence you had in the elections, on a wider scale. So, that's the horrific real truth of not only the Electoral College, but of our racist past. That all men were not created equal according to our Constitution. Really, the way it should read is all white men. Women didn't count. Slaves didn't count. Slave women didn't count. So that's a fact, Jack.
Yep. If you think of it, blacks technically weren't considered citizens until after the Civil War. They were emancipated during the Civil War. We'll get into that in a minute.
Yes.
They didn't get the right to vote the 13th until after the Civil War, the late 1860s. Women didn't get the right to vote until the 1920s. And honestly, African Americans have had the right to vote since the 1860s, but it didn't actually legally get reinforced until the 1960s, 1964.
Right.
So less than 60 years that African Americans have actually legally been allowed to vote with no restrictions.
Right. So yeah, you could go as early as the late 1860s with some right to vote, but that also depended where you lived, and not even just where you lived, but who you were dealing with when it came to the voting booths and
that's
whatnot.
right. Yeah. If you look at the history, actually, in the Reconstruction South between 1865 and the early 1870s, a majority of the lawmakers and the elected officials in the South, there was a great deal of African American representation.
Yeah.
Until the 1870s, when Reconstruction was ended and Jim Crow laws were put into effect, which basically were ways of white folks and the Klan saying, yeah, we're afraid, we don't like the fact that you have newfound power, so we're going to restrict it.
Yeah. That's where you really started seeing the segregation and those laws that really to this day haunt this country. Jim Crow may be over in a sense, but there's a new Jim Crow going on. And well, that kind of brings us to a point. Let's talk about the statues, the monuments that have been put up, because that's another issue that I think people get hot under the collar over. So the basic issue is people, and listen, I'm not 100% on any side with this. I am to some degree, and I am not to other degrees. But basically, the idea is that there are these monuments that were put up in town centers. Look at Charlottesville, with the Robert E. Lee, I think, was in the middle. Yeah, it was in the middle of Charlottesville town center, and across the South in particular, though not exclusively there, but mostly in the South, you'll find these places where in the middle of the town, they have their Confederate heroes posted up. Most of those statues did not exist until the early 1900s under Jim Crow laws. That's and right. Why were they put there? But to intimidate the black folks, to That's say, right. These are our heroes. These people are the ones we look up to. You don't have a place here.
That's right. Even Robert E. Lee, the most often represented statue, Robert E. Lee, even he said in the 1860s, don't put up statues for us, because he acknowledged, okay, guys, we lost. Let's move forward. Let's reconnect as a country. Let's rebuild. Let's Now, Robert E. Lee has his own negative history with slavery, but
Sure.
he at least acknowledged, hey, guys, don't put statues up for me or anybody because we need to come back together. He acknowledged the fact that he had a part in tearing apart this country.
Oh, wait, but didn't Robert E. Lee treat his slaves nicely?
Oh, he was a good, honorable Southern man.
Whatever that means.
He
Like,
was
so,
an honorable
folks,
gentleman.
but this is one of the things that white and culturally insensitive people tend to do is say, well, there's a difference between, the real harsh slave owners of the South who beat the bejesus out of their slaves and did terrible things, and somebody like Robert E. Lee, who was he owned slaves because it's what you did back then, but he was nice to his
He was
slaves.
nice. He gave them a roof over their head and fed them.
Can you ever own a slave nicely? That's the question we need to stop and pause and ask in our heads. Is it ever okay to own a human being?
George Washington owned slaves.
Yes, he did.
Good.
So did Thomas Jefferson. Actually, he liked to.
I mean, there's even.
He was a ladies' man. What can we say?
Yeah, I mean, even Princeton Seminary, the largest Presbyterian seminary, is now currently talking about recently made a decision to because of its slave owning past. I mean, was it Reverend Winthrop?
Yep.
Who was active in the founding of the country, was a slave owner. He was a pastor and he was a slave owner.
Right.
What's his name? Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God.
Oh, John Edwards.
John Edwards. He was vehemently was a proponent of slavery.
Yeah.
Had slaves. And it took good Christians to reread the Bible to say, no, this is wrong. But yeah, I mean, Princeton just now recently made a decision to part of its huge, massive endowment.
Right.
I might be quoting this wrong, so anybody who listens can correct me. But they're making efforts to, make amends for their slave owning history.
Paying reparations or something of that sort.
Yeah, they're providing scholarships for African American and minority students.
Good. Yep. And truth be told, if we stop and think about what we're saying, we know that there is never a time when it is, in today's day and age, most of us know is never a good time to own a slave. It's never a good thing to own a slave. Owning another human being is just evil unto itself. Never mind how you treat or calm, peaceful man, and your slaves kind of liked you because they had no other choice, and they were better off than at Farmer Joe's plantation down the street. That doesn't make what you did okay or any better just because you were more genteel, so to speak. So we need to drop that argument now.
There's a difference between indentured servant and slave.
Yes, there is. Yeah, an indentured servant, which we had more up north. That was, or anywhere really, but people from England owed debts, and one of the ways you could get out of the debt was put yourself into servanthood. And after 7 years or however many years it took to pay off your debt, you were free. No one questioned you. You looked like everybody else. All's good and all's well. Versus, you are property. You're less than a human being. We own you. And if, by the way, you try to escape. How kind was Robert E. Lee to his slaves? Would he allow them to escape? Would he set them free?
And their families, people's families were separated,
Were sold, right. To God knows where.
And they they don't have the same ancestry that we do. I mean, I can trace family on my grandmother or my maternal grandmother's side back to the Mayflower. How many people of color living in America? I'm not saying it's absolute, but how many people of color in America right now can say that? Things were documented. Like in Jesus' time, Jesus was considered a nobody. They didn't document all that. We have many things on Caesar and Nero and all that, but my input.
And even Jesus had a easier time documenting his lineage than, say, a black person today would. Yeah.
Yep.
And that's just given the history of slavery. I mean, that's just the nature of slavery. You had women, children who were raped as slaves by white slave owners. So who bore the children of those white slave owners, and those kids were no better than slaves because, they were never going to be equal to their master.
Yeah, that's an ongoing
or their father.
That's an ongoing struggle because it's well known that Jefferson had a affair with at least one of his slaves.
At least one, yeah.
And so now it's like, okay, so does that family now have legal rights to the Jefferson lineage? And
they absolutely
state?
should. Yeah, they should.
But yeah, getting back to the statues, I mean, those were put, like Todd said, those were put up during Jim Crow as intimidation. Some of them, even I think the Robert E. Lee statue in Richmond, I think it's Richmond, one of the big cities, it's written into the deed of the statue that this cannot be taken down. It's in the deed. So it's like, how do you take it down if it's in the deed that it can't legally be removed? Well, there's ways around that. The city could buy the property and take it down,
or people could mob and lasso it and pull it down, which is happening too. I mean, I mean, it's kind of like in the church, if someone were to come and say, we want this statue of Reverend so-and-so put in the narthex of the church, and as a part of accepting this, it can never come down or be moved and it will always be there. Do we accept that or do we not? Like the things are put into deeds often like that. Specific things like that are put into deeds as power plays. We don't want this removed, no matter how soft people get in the future.
Yeah, and that's.
I know. I believe it's George Washington. I'm not. In Boston Common, there's a statue. As I said, I believe it's of George Washington. It's like, would I be a little offended if it came down, if people were offended because he owned slaves? I mean, a little bit, just because it's what I grew up on and what I'm used to seeing there. But if it offended somebody, take it down. Put up a statue of somebody else. I actually just posted on Facebook. You could, if you take one down, put something up. Glorify. If there's a historical Black figure in that area, or just anyone of a minority or marginalized that has done something significant, put a statue up of them.
Yeah.
Take the one of George Washington down.
Right. Or leave the one of George. Or leave the one of George Washington up, but start including other statues that are, because, I get the George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, those people, because they were the literal founding fathers of our country. And that's a history we really shouldn't erase.
No.
But they are people to look up to because they aspired. And many of them actually did not want slavery to be a part of this nation, but they allowed it because they wanted all of the Union to be unanimous on supporting the revolution. A compromise that we can debate whether that was right or wrong, but that was a compromise they made. So we can I'm okay with their statues, but when you start getting into Confederate soldiers, Confederate generals and admirals and war leaders who are literally people who opposed the Union altogether and wanted to secede from the Union. And they're not heroes. And we're glorifying it, right? We're glorifying something they would be adamantly against in their lifetimes.
It's funny that at the very least you're glorifying traitors.
Yeah.
And at the most you're glorifying racism and slavery.
Correct. Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. I mean, and it's also come up. I think we are. This can kind of, if you want, lead us into the whole movement that's going on today. But I think even now we're seeing in the last 30 years, and I'll speak as an Italian American. And I don't say this to say, oh, I know Black people struggle because I'm an Italian American. No, but in the early 1900s, in the 30s and 40s, when Italian Americans were considered less than white people, because a lot of immigrant groups go through that. We're not as good as the white Anglo-Americans.
Right.
Italians were considered dirt. Irish were considered dirt.
Irish too.
They were better than African Americans.
And don't be a German during World War II.
That's right. But they were still considered.
Right.
Yep. But so the efforts of the Knights of Columbus in the 30s and 40s and 50s was to really push this idea of Christopher Columbus was this great explorer who discovered America. Actually, he discovered the Bahamas, and
basically. I'm not arguing that. That's a good thing.
He basically discovered the Bahamas and Haiti by accident and called it India.
And truth be told, he didn't discover it because people were already living there.
People were already here. And honestly, the Vikings had found it 600 years earlier.
Yeah. And people were still living there when they found it.
That's right.
We love to say that white people found things that brown people were already living. Like they're already there. They had found it like, not even a million, but thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of years earlier.
And they're doing just fine.
They were doing just fine.
They were doing just fine without us. Yeah.
And if you actually read the history of Christopher Columbus, the way that he treated there's like Haiti, the indigenous population of Haiti and the Dominican Republic, where he landed, is non-existent.
Yeah,
folks from those countries now, Haiti and the Dominican Republic, are the results of the imported slaves marrying and intermarrying with the natives. But disease, his men brought over disease, which wiped out a huge swath of indigenous people.
Yep.
He basically sold the remaining half of the remaining population into slavery. He used young girls as young as 9 for pleasure, for his men's pleasure.
Good American values.
Good guy. You could get a young girl for your pleasure.
And he lost the name of this country to another Italian.
That's right, Amerigo Vespucci.
That's right. So he was all sorts of a winner.
Yeah. So I get it. The Knights of Columbus were doing it to like raise the standing of Italians in this country.
Sure.
And I thank them for that. I mean, my grandfather was a product of his parents. His mother couldn't afford to keep him, so he's, like many Italian Americans, was put into an orphanage at a young age.
And his parents were right off the boat, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
They were what we would call WOPs.
They were WOPs. They were
without papers.
Yep.
That's what WOP means, by the way, folks. It means without papers. It was the illegal alien of the day.
That's right.
The flavor of the century.
Yeah. We were called guineas because when we worked in Africa, we were paid in guineas.
Oh.
But yeah, looking back though, we elevated him to this great guy, but he did some pretty horrible stuff. Yeah,
in fact, I would argue that the horrible stuff he did outweighed the good.
That's right.
If we can call what he did good. Like, he brought a whole bunch of white people to a land that inevitably would be taken over by the white people.
Yep.
In all sorts of unethical and immoral ways.
So as an Italian American, I'm totally okay with taking down statues of Columbus. And I think as a white person, you might agree, Todd, I'm okay with taking down statues of Confederates because we have museums, we have textbooks, we have that history is not going to be lost. And even the history that's being lost with the taking down of those statues is not the proper history.
Right. And while I do think that it's important for us to honor our founding fathers, I think we can also find other founding fathers. I think a good statue of Frederick Douglass would do as much good as a statue of George Washington. I mean, a statue of Harriet Tubman, would serve more people than just a statue of Thomas Jefferson. So I think we need to balance out the founding fathers and recognize that while yes, there are certain white men who founded this country and wrote the Constitution, Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and the articles and whatnot, but the Bill of Rights, but then there were other people who helped found this country too. Like, where would this country be without a Harriet Tubman or without a Frederick Douglass or without a Martin Luther King Jr.? I mean, this country's constantly being founded.
Exactly. And an experience that I had, well, this was before George Floyd. I just watched on Netflix, there was a few documentaries on Malcolm X.
Mm-hmm.
And after this, I did a Google search because I wanted to know a little bit more about the Nation of Islam and stuff like that. And so I just found out through my Google searches that Malcolm X was buried in Westchester. There's a cemetery in Westchester. So before this happened, I kind of wanted to just go with Sal and just take a day trip over there, maybe have lunch or something, and just go visit his cemetery because that's something we kind of share. Like, Sal likes going to visit, historical cemeteries and etc. We've done that on our trips. But that was before all of this happened. And now our son is born, and he really won't know it, but he'll have his, in about 2 weeks, we're going to take his sister, Petra, and Calvin, and we're going to make a day trip, and we're going to go visit his grave. So
Malcolm X's?
Yes.
Rock on. Yeah.
It's over. It's in Hartsdale. It's over by White Plains in Westchester. It's about an hour from here. So.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
So anyway.
Yeah. No. Cool. And we need we need more representation in our statues. If you look at statues that are honoring the founding of this country, it's all white people. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with looking up to George Washington or Thomas Jefferson or John Adams or any of those people who are fighting for something greater than themselves, which is what they were doing. And yes, slavery got lost in the mix, and it shouldn't have, perhaps. It's really easy for us to armchair quarterback what people were trying to get done then. And I'm not making excuses for it, but rather than do that, how about we just bear more representation, so that it's not just white people who founded this country. This country was built on the backs of slaves. Exactly. This country was built on the backs of people of color. So, so I'd be all for that, and tear down anything that, honestly, the Confederate flag belongs in a museum and nowhere else. Right. Like flying the Confederate flag next to the American flag is antithetical to what the Confederate flag even stood for. Yeah, sure. They don't belong together.
and the Confederate flag that they're flying is not even the legitimate flag of the Confederates. No.
And please take the flags off the back of your trucks. If we can't hang air fresheners from our rear mirror because it's a distraction, what makes your flag not one?
Especially if you live in suburban northern New Jersey.
Yeah, and honestly, what if that thing dislodged and Dracula impaled somebody, or did you? For all the offense that people take over taking a knee during the national anthem, do you ever think that maybe flying the flag from the back of your truck is not the proper way to fly the flag? Is that maybe insulting the country as well?
Of all the things that are in the flag code of what disrespects the flag, kneeling is not in there.
No, and I'm pretty sure there are ways to fly it and ways not to. Like your flag should never be flying from the back of your truck in the dark. There should always be a light on it. Now you could say, well, sometimes headlights are on it, but not all the time.
Not all the time.
So come on, folks.
And then they get tattered. You're not supposed to fly a tattered flag, and
yeah. And then how do you get rid of that flag? Because there's a whole ritual around that, and you're supposed to burn it.
That's right.
So. Yeah. So that brings me to, I guess it brings us to, I guess we can talk about Black Lives Matter, because I think there's that's something that really needs, to be talked about. We started this segment off with All Lives Matter, right?
That's right.
Yes, all lives matter. But as Sal rightly said, and Alison also said, And I also said, white lives matter more. Let's face it, as white people, honestly, if you're white and you're listening to this, and by the way, this is not to shame you for, your color of your skin. That's not what this is about. I'm proud of my heritage. I'm proud of my family history. I'm proud of my heritage. Like all families, there's some things I'm more proud of and some things I'm less proud of. But I'm proud of my heritage, and we all should be. So this isn't about dissing you because you're white. But as a white person, if you listen, what's that?
Let me interject there. I'm proud of my heritage as an Italian American and a Dutch American.
Yeah.
I'm not proud of my skin tone. That's the difference between white pride and being proud of a heritage.
I'm not going out to get a tan anytime soon. Yeah, I don't need to be somebody other than. I'm not unproud of my skin tone. I was born this way. I can't cut it off of me. But
we're no more responsible for our white skin tone than black folks are for their.
No, yeah. So I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm not proud of my skin tone. But I don't look at my skin tone as being something that I should be so proud of that other people need to bow down to me. Right. Like it's my skin tone. I quite honestly don't give it much thought in the day. But here's the point. The point is that I want anyone who's listening to this who's white to really reflect and ask themselves this. When you go out and you go to the store or you go to a park or you go anywhere and you see police officers or say you're sending your kids out to play in the neighborhood, do you ever worry that your kids aren't going to come home because they might run in with the police? Even if your kid's a punk, do you ever worry that your kid is going to get crushed or shot by the police?
Right.
Most of us, if not all of us, can say, no. I worry my kid might get arrested by the police because he's a punk, or I may worry that that my kid may have a run-in with the police and be a little mouthy and get a ticket or maybe a court date. But most of us white people don't have to worry about our kids not coming home because of police brutality. That's right. Just not in our reality.
I worry that Calvin one day is going to get pulled over for speeding, or he's going to make a stupid decision and drive home drunk.
Or get caught with drugs, something stupid. Yeah.
But I don't fear that that's going to cost him his life.
Right. And what happens to him if he gets, say, caught with drugs? He may do some juvie time. He more than likely, if it's a first offense, he's going to get community service, rehab, that sort of thing.
Right.
Black people can't say the same thing.
Nope.
The highest incarceration rate in this country, and by the way, we're talking proportionately, not numbers.
That's right.
White people are the majority. So yes, there are going to be more white people in prisons and more white people in this and that. We're talking proportions. Proportionately, there are more black people incarcerated than white people.
Yes, that is the biggest counter argument that I see on social media right now from people that I know is, well, there's more white people killed by the cops, or there's more white people. Black African Americans make up a smaller percentage of the population, and yet, even with that smaller percentage of the population, they make up proportionately. They get killed and or incarcerated at a larger rate than white people.
And I would dare say that actually, if you were to look at our prisons, even with white people being the majority of people in prison are not white. And that's just a reality.
The legal system is set up to favor white people.
Right. You're going to give the white person a second chance more than you're going to give the black person.
I don't know if you've seen the movie Just Mercy.
I have not yet, but it is on my list of things to watch shortly.
Just the way that the system, like, there's more things set up in this our judicial system. More African American men are told to just take a plea.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go through this. Don't go through the process. Don't go through the system. Just take a plea, and they don't know better than to, okay, I want to get out of this. But the system is designed to proportionately for white people and people with money.
Yeah,
because
Right. Yeah, if you're a white person with money, you're better off than a white person without money.
Right.
So there's all different layers of privilege.
Right.
And just a side note, Jamie Foxx so Jim Carrey and Jamie Foxx going from In Living Color to, I just think they're talented. Jamie Foxx is really like, first of all, he looks the same minus his hair has been altered. But he, from In Living Color, his, from comedy to this serious role.
Yeah.
Really props.
Yeah. Jamie Foxx is rocking. And is Jim Carrey in the film?
No.
No,
But,
okay.
They're just
because they were both on the same.
Talented actors, but Jim Carrey and Jamie Foxx, they're really talented actors.
Yeah, they can do serious roles. Absolutely. So we, the whole point of Black Lives Matter is not to say that every other life doesn't matter. Right. And this is coming from such a place of privilege, right? Where we're so used to being told we all matter and it makes us feel good. But as we sleep tight in our beds, Black and brown lives are dying and being incarcerated at in proportion, like at greater rates. And so while it makes us feel good to say all lives matter, the truth be told, I'm saying this generally, we don't give a damn about the lives that aren't next door to us, and honestly, I have seen racism in that regard too. When Black people move into a white neighborhood and white people are like, oh no, I hope they're not going to be hoodlums, or, oh no, I hope our neighborhood's going to be safe. I've heard even people argue that it's going to depreciate the value of our house.
No,
seriousness.
My mom's neighborhood, me growing up in Middletown, I hung out. It was in our neighborhood, we played block tag, 8:00 at night to, midnight or whatever.
Right.
It was mixed races. There was, nerds, and there was, people maybe that smoked marijuana. It was, whatever. Recently, maybe like 20 years ago, there was some people that moved across the street from us. They moved from New York City. And they're African American, and they're the nicest people.
Sure.
There was neighbors across the street from us. The neighbors across the street from us were African American, and next door to them, were white neighbors. So our neighbors, my mom's neighbors, the Browns, they were African American. They asked the neighbor across, like next to them, just to move their cars off the way the driveway is. It was like a dirt driveway. Mm-hmm. They just asked them very nicely, please, can you just please like move your car over into the driveway, into your driveway? And the response was, you N-word, go back to the city.
Wow.
And the Browns have lived there about 20 years. They have one of the most expensive houses in the neighborhood. I worked with his wife, Avina. They're regular people. They're very well educated. Their son also is very well educated. And this is a neighborhood that I grew up in, but like next door, like I had to hear this through a neighbor. And I'm just like, the people that said the derogatory words have now moved on, and the house is for sale. But I'm just like, you don't even know them, and you're just calling them the N-word. And it's right. I'm just like, I don't like, this is, they moved up from New York City, probably for more land, and this is their forever home. And they've been here they've been across the street from my mom for almost 20 years. They're just regular. I would say they're even more than middle class, because they have good jobs and they're educated and stuff. Mm-hmm. And then they still have to deal with this. They still they are the nicest people, and they asked the neighbor in the nicest way to move their RV. just like a few feet off their property, because technically the property line, and they
Right.
just still had to deal with that. And I'm just like, it's just,
Yeah.
it
And
really it burned me and my mom up, but it burned our neighbor up that heard it.
Oh, sure.
Happened.
And I've, like I said, I've thankfully not in my family, but I've heard, friends or friends of friends, families, I've heard people talking, like a black family moves into the neighborhood and it's like, oh, I hope that doesn't depreciate our property value, or I hope crime isn't going to be coming. It's like, you don't even know these. Like, if it were another white family, you wouldn't be
Right.
saying those things,
Right.
so it's, and they, the funny thing is, they're not consciously thinking about what they're saying.
No.
But I don't think they'd care even if they did. And
No.
and it's that sort of thing that really like has been eye-opening to me in my life, and something that I've really resisted. I mean, especially as a grown adult, and certainly as a minister, like the idea that anybody is better or worse because of their skin tone is just ludicrous to me.
Yeah. And they both have master's degrees. Their son has a master's degree. Now his wife Avina doesn't come out of, because they have the garage, and they kind of keep to themselves. They have family more down in the city and up in Boston. But I know Avina personally from working. We worked in the same department together for about 10 years. So I see her husband more out doing the yard and stuff. So Avina stays more in her house, and they have an only child, and he would, since they're from the city, he would go down to private school down there, and then he would go to school in Boston and in New York City. He got his bachelor's and master's. But they're just the nicest regular people, and
Yeah.
they're your neighbor. And I don't see Avina as much anymore because I don't work at the same company as her anymore. But I can't, they're just regular people, and they have to, and they asked in a nice way, can you please just, move your RV off the property?
They weren't doing
And they had to
anything
deal
that
with
any other
being
neighbor would
told,
do.
and I
Right.
I can't.
Yeah. That's stuff that, you're always going to have, no matter who you are, you're always going to have run-ins with nasty neighbors, but not like that. Not where your entire humanity is being degraded. Because
It's like your next door neighbor and you don't even know who they are.
Right.
And they're asking you nicely.
Right.
So that's my experience.
Yeah. So black, that's the point of all of this, is that Black lives ought to matter. And so by saying Black Lives Matter, and I've seen a couple of good helpful memes, like when the Boston Marathon was happening and the bombs went off and people were hurt. Everybody put on their Facebook, Boston strong.
Yeah.
Nobody came up with a counter argument saying, well, New York's strong too.
Yeah, exactly.
Or all cities are strong.
Right. They were the victims.
They were the victims, so we were focusing on the victims. That's what Black Lives Matter is about. And I also said to somebody, if your house was on fire, would you want the fire department to have all houses matter equally argument, or would you want them to have the mentality of my house matters? Do you want them to go down the neighborhood spraying each house along the way until they get to yours, or do you want them to come directly to yours and hose out the fire?
Exactly. And
all lives matter, all houses matter, but right now my house matters.
Exactly. And I forget his last name, but his first name was Rashad, down in Georgia and Atlanta. And just seeing that video happen after all of this already, I just, you're unarmed. No matter what you did in life, if we're taking the Christian route, you're still a child of God. So no matter what you did in your life, people are saying, oh, I don't know, I think he had a few children and he went to jail for child abuse.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how you lived your life. Leave that to God. Leave that to Jesus to judge. Okay.
Yeah.
No matter how
Yeah.
you live your life, you don't deserve to die that way. No matter how you got, if you were going to be incarcerated or arrested at the time.
Right.
So he was resisting arrest. He was an unarmed person and he was running. Yes, he resisted arrest.
Sure.
He was unarmed. You already knew who he was.
You're
There
gonna
was
catch up
no
with him.
reason to how far was he going to get without a
Yeah.
car?
Yeah.
How far was he going to get? No, you know, like
I'll tell a story I'm not too proud of, but this will go to show the difference between a Rashad and Todd. I was a kid, 17 maybe years old, and got into a bit of an argument, scuffle, whatever you want to call it, with my parents. And they called the police on me. I thought it was an idle threat. It was not an idle threat. They called the police on me. And I decided when the police did arrive, I decided I was going to sneak out the back door and run away. Well, I hit a garbage can on the way, and that gave my location up pretty quickly. And the police chased after me. I was, guess what? Resisting. I was running away.
Yeah.
Did I get shot in the back? No, they kept chasing me until I couldn't run anymore. And when they did catch me, they had a few words and sent me to the hospital and got me evaluated. No charges pressed. Everything was fine. You know, like that wasn't the first time I had a run-in with the police. So they knew that I was a kid going through, issues. And the police by and large police by and large across this country are there to serve and protect. I don't doubt that. No one joins the police force thinking they want to go kill somebody. There are some maybe who do, but most don't. But the way I was treated because of my privilege versus the way a Rashad's treated because of his lack of privilege is clear.
Exactly.
Granted, I was a teenager. I didn't have any storied history or anything like that. But a history doesn't deserve you to get shot dead in the back.
No.
It just doesn't.
No.
If you don't catch him, you will catch up with him at some point. I mean, he's going. Yeah. You charge him. That's what you do. You charge him if he resists arrest.
They already frisked him. They knew who he was. How far was he going to get without his car?
He wasn't.
He was going to, even if he walked back to where he lived or ran back to where he lived.
You were going to catch up with him, and then you book him appropriately. That's the way it should be done. Shooting somebody in the back because they're running away is not. It's not a wise thing to do.
Yeah, and you already know he's unarmed.
Yeah,
it's sickening.
It's sickening. He posed no threat to anybody's life. He was just trying to get away, which, by the way, people do. It's a common thing.
When you're drunk, you don't make the best decisions.
You don't make the best decisions, right? So
I had a conversation the other, after the George Floyd death, the president of my nonprofit, wanted to do something. So he got in touch with one of our chaplains. She's a person of color. We did an 8-minute and 46-second moment of silence and time for reflection. So I had a conversation with an employee who said they're struggling with it because they felt, number one, felt like it was being forced on them. And number two, they said, why him? Why George Floyd? I said, what do you mean? She said, why use him as your martyr when he had a history? I said, what do you mean? Well, he had a criminal history. I said, does that make him any less of a child of God? She said, well, he had a history. I said, does that make him any less of an image bearer of the divine image? And the person had to admit to me, well, I'm struggling with that because they had, would you say you wouldn't want a white guy to be the martyr of a movement because of a history? Police history?
And the reality, and here's what people don't realize, and there's more that's come to unfold about George Floyd's death that makes it even more disgusting. But the reality is, he had a history in the past, and he had turned his life around. He had come to Christ. He was attending church and trying to be a different person. Since when in all of Christendom and Christianity do we not give people second chances anymore? Since when do we hold the sins of the past over the head of somebody who's been saved? It's unbelievable. But much less say that they deserve to be crushed to death for 9 minutes because they had a history. I mean, like that is not only twisted and disgusting, it's outrageous. You know, and it goes against everything that Christ stood for. Not to mention, now we're finding out that the police officer who killed him and George Floyd actually worked together and they didn't get along.
Right.
So add that dynamic to it.
Well, why was the reason they didn't get along? Was it a racial thing or was it just a personality?
I'm not entirely sure about that. It could have been personality, could have been racial. I don't know. But I know that they had a couple of run-ins at work. They were bouncers or something like that, I think.
I can't imagine the police officer. He's sitting there on his neck.
Yeah.
And even after he passed away, he wasn't letting up.
No, was not letting him up.
There's got to be some, like, what level of evil and hate? I can't get that out of my head.
And this wasn't his first offense. He had been brought up on other offenses of excessive force and things like that. So this is
like, what brought you to that point? I mean, every police officer.
That brings up a whole nother level of police reform. And like, if I hear Blue Lives Matter again, yes, I have family who are police officers. Would I want them to be? Yeah. Would I want them to be injured in the line of duty? Of course not. But your career choice as a police officer is a choice.
Right.
Your skin tone is not. Right. George Floyd did not have the choice to be born a black man.
No.
The police officer who killed him had the choice to be an officer.
Right. Let alone the choice to get off of his neck.
That's right. So don't tell me that blue is not even it's a career choice. It's not a life.
I firmly agree that black and white lives matter, you know, like meaning I wear a black and white, you know, colored shirt. You know, priest lives matter, of course, but you know, it's not the same thing. It's not. Yes, all lives matter, but until Black Lives Matter, all lives really don't matter. No. And yes, all lives should matter equally, but the reality is they just don't. And yes, we should be fighting for peace and not, like, you know, burning up cities and this and that, you know. And that's the other argument, is like, well, you know, when the people with their guns were out there protesting, nobody got killed and no cities were being burned. Well, first off, who knows if anybody got killed, you know, that just didn't get reported. Secondly, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing because you have both KKK, white nationalists, and Antifa, who are two separate groups from Black Lives Matter, coming in and doing their own thing, causing the riots. The Black Lives Matter folks are fighting for Black lives. They're not burning down their cities. In fact, the people who are getting hurt are more Black lives. So it's the reality is, you know, peace is all good. But until there's justice, there will be no peace.
No.
How can there? And people are like, "What are you saying? So until justice comes, you're going to be violent?" No. What I'm saying is, without justice, there is no peace, because people are getting crushed.
Yeah, and I think the people that are saying, you know, all lives matter is pretty much common sense.
Yeah.
But if you're not recognizing the reason for the BLM movement. If you're not even acknowledging it, like you're not acknowledging the reason why Colin Kaepernick is kneeling, and you're just saying he's unpatriotic, and you're not even focusing on the reason why he's kneeling in the first place, then you're tone deaf. You're just missing the point. You're choosing to stay ignorant and just not opening your eyes to things.
Yeah. And if you're willfully being ignorant, I'm just going to go ahead and say that's racist.
Yes.
Because you should know better.
That's right.
And at this point, at least open your eyes a little bit, or just some sort of acknowledgement for what this group of people is going through. It's not absolute.
No.
Not everyone may be experiencing that, depending on where they live or whatever. But there's,
Can I say this? Here's something I'll add. Here's something I'll add.
Mm-hmm.
And it went right out of my head. People will often use or All Lives Matter, not because they actually care about all lives, but because they're using it as a way of dismissing Black lives.
Yeah.
And here's the reality. If all lives matter to you, if that is your true argument and all lives matter to you, then praise Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you go out and protest for those Black lives so that all lives can matter?
Yeah.
That's right.
If all lives really matter to you, then Black lives would matter to you, right?
Right.
Right. So if you're not going to put your money where your mouth is, stop. Just stop. Seriously.
That's like, I saw a conservative person I know post that the problem is sin, not skin. The answer is grace, not race. Jesus died for all. Our nation needs him. Sure, okay. But right now, our Black lives need him more than our white lives.
Yeah.
Or maybe our white lives need him more than the Black lives.
That's right.
Maybe if white lives would come to Jesus a little more, we might actually be a better place. No, that is just. I don't know how to nicely put this. That is just bullshit. It just is. I mean, what does that even mean?
Right.
What does that even mean? So your response to racial inequality is we all need to come to Jesus and just ignore the stuff that matters?
Yeah.
Like how's
that coming to Jesus?
That's right. As a Reformed Christian, because I hear this a lot in Reformed circles about the supremacy of Christ. Like Christ is it. Jesus plus nothing equals everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jesus is the way, the truth, the life.
Yeah.
We need to focus on Christ, nothing else.
Amen.
I think we can both agree. I think that Johns would agree on that.
There's a gong right there.
But the problem is that we don't. It's not that we don't, our Black brothers and sisters don't believe in the supremacy of Christ. It's the fact that we as white folk
don't believe in the supremacy of Christ.
Don't believe it, and we don't we don't value the justice of making sure that their lives matter, because us failing to see the worth and of Black lives and failing to seek justice and righteousness for those lives, in my opinion, it makes your supremacy of Christ null and void.
Absolutely. And I would even say, if Christ is supreme, right, and supremacy of Christ is something that we adhere to and nothing else, then you might be probably listening to Matthew 25. You might be paying attention to Matthew 23. You might be paying attention to the Beatitudes. You might be paying attention to a lot of scriptures that would have you standing up for Black lives and Black Lives Matter. So if Christ is so supreme, get on it. Amen.
Exactly.
I don't know. This is just a thought. Recently, around the internet, there's, the show Family Matters with Steve Urkel.
Yep.
There's a scene, and I don't remember it as a kid, the specific scene, but I remember TGIF, Friday night from 8 to 10. It was Full House, Family Matters. Yeah. Those are the two big ones. And then Step by Step. And then there I think there was another one, but that was TGIF. Mm-hmm. And it was they were, that's what I watched is, a tween. you can visually see the difference. Obviously, Family Matters to Full House, but they were both,
right back to back. Yeah.
I didn't really think of it I didn't really think of it as like, oh, this is a black show versus a white show.
Right.
It was just, obviously you could tell they were a different race, but it really never crossed my mind.
Right.
And recently there's been a scene from Family Matters that has gone around the internet with the racial profiling of the son.
Mm-hmm.
And because the father in the show was a cop, and Eddie, I think it was Eddie who was the son.
Yep.
Was racially profiled, and there was a scene in a diner with the two white cops.
Well, we know his name wasn't Carlton.
Yeah, well that was
It's a different show.
which again had its own. They had their scenes too.
Yes, they did.
And I was watching the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air today, and I had Calvin doing some hand gestures and stuff. He was dancing along with the little rap with Will Smith.
Yeah, yeah.
But as a kid, watching Family Matters, it was just part of CGF. I didn't really think of the difference. But now, like literally 30 years later, seeing that scene go around the internet, it totally changes things for me.
It does, yeah.
And things haven't changed. And you think of the riots with Rodney King. Well, that was the time of when Full House and Family Matters, all that was going on.
Yep.
So when you're a kid, you don't think of all that stuff. But now it's still, but what I'm saying is that it's still the same issue.
Yeah, it is.
And what is it? A Different World. I used to watch that show.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to talk about race issues. And I thought about it, but I didn't really think about it like I think about it today. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just sad that it's still such a...
It has not gotten
poignant
better.
Picture. It's just...
I think when we were growing up, this was my take on it. You learn about the plight of America, the slavery and all of that, and the stain that is on our history. And there was a sense that we haven't come far enough, but we're progressing in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always had that feeling like it's terrible what people had to go through in the past, and what they're going through now isn't that great, but it's better than what it was in the past. And we're progressing forward to a future that one day everybody will live up to the American ideal. That feeling in me as an adult is gone. Like I don't know. I want to hope that we will reach a place of equality across the board one day, but when will that happen? And it hasn't happened from when we were kids till now. If anything, we're heading backwards.
Yeah.
So like I again, that's coming out of my own white privilege, because black people might say it's never been any different. This is the way it's always been for us.
Right.
It's only been worse to this. But that idea, that pride that we're moving forward as a human race, as a human race, it's just is gone in my mind. Like I hope for it, but I'm not holding my breath for it anymore. Like I was when I was a kid, and I don't know about you, Sal and Alison, but I think this is a good place for us to end. And I think for our special segment, we can get into Shithouse Theology.
Sounds good. I think, just in closing, you made me think of, I heard President Obama interviewed, and he said his hope as president was just simply to move the needle. Even if he didn't get great things accomplished, if he moved the needle a little bit, he accomplished something. So that's my hope, is that we could make some progress.
Yeah.
But I think
Calvin agrees.
Yeah. Did we define that we don't, by white privilege, we don't mean that we, as you and I, Todd, as white males, necessarily had a better life?
We did not talk about that, but that is true. Let's end with this. Yes.
We'll end with this. When Todd and I talk about white privilege, we don't mean that we as white people had a better life. We
No.
both went through struggles. We went through financial hardships.
My family was not by any means wealthy. In fact, we lived paycheck to paycheck. Yep.
There was a period in my life after my divorce that I would be considered poor and worked paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
White privilege does not mean that we didn't go through struggles. It simply means our skin was not one of those struggles.
Yeah. Yeah. We
didn't
were
have
granted.
to worry about. We didn't have to worry about financial hardships, and the fact that we're black and might get killed at a police stop.
Yeah.
Traffic stop.
Or get killed walking down the street in our neighborhood. You know, I mean, it's not just the police. I mean, I hear people bring up, you know, like, well, what about black on black killings in the inner city? Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And yeah, those are black lives getting lost as well. But we don't just dismiss the police brutality and the other ways that blacks are suffering because we want to focus on this one issue. That's all issues need to be focused on. And honestly, those inner city problems aren't going to get fixed by white people looking down their noses at the black people, which is exactly what that sentiment is, right? Like, well, what about the black on black? No, let's deal with the issue at hand, systemic racism. We can eliminate systemic racism and we can lift people out of abject poverty. Why do those neighborhoods exist? Because white people moved out of them. Why did white people move out of them? Because black people moved into them. This is the reality.
Yeah.
And businesses follow white people.
That's right. We need to address the fact that the system has always been geared towards white people.
Right. And that's what white privilege is. It's not being ashamed of being white or being ashamed of your heritage or saying that white people had it easy and weren't poor. There are plenty of destitute. In fact, there are some white people who are more poor than some black people.
Right.
I'm not doubting that.
We can address, you know, whites being killed by cops and black on black crime. We can address that once we address the fact that the system unjustly for the last 400 years and has been geared towards white people.
Yes. Yeah. So I think this is a good place to end. We will carry it over to this has been a kind of heavy segment, but we're in a heavy time and I think we need to address it. I'm glad we did. If we said anything wrong or insensitive, let us know.
Yep.
You know, we're not perfect, but our hearts, I believe, are in the right place. And, you know, we're looking for an America where all people count equally. Right. So yeah, we are looking for all lives to matter. They just don't yet. And we need to fight so that they do, and stand up for what's right, because that's what Christ calls us to do. That is the Christian way. So friends, as we always tell you, you must, as Christians, be excellent to each other.
And don't be a jerk.
Rock on.
Rock on.